It's Lessons for Life, and we're live. And I've got Seb Lopez with me. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Joining us all the way from the United States. Whereabouts are you, Seb?
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Superb. The capital, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice one. I saw your performance that you uploaded the other day. You're a spoken word artist, and you were talking about artificial intelligence. What made you want to write poetry about AI?
Well, I think that the future is very poetic. I think that if we can overcome this snag in evolution, this kind of ominous, negative possible outcome that we see, this impending doom, if we could somehow evade this impending doom of an environmental collapse or even worse, world wars, and we can sort of transcend this dark night, and with the new technologies and the new evolution of consciousness that's going to take place with it, we could get to a really sweet spot. I believe that.
So you're welcoming the artificial intelligence as a positive thing.
Yeah.
Do you not? Sorry to interrupt. For me, I think AI might kill creativity if we no longer have to think for ourselves. How is it going to be this positive influence that you're looking forward to?
Well, I don't see it as a replacement for human intelligence. I see it as an extension of human intelligence. Just imagine when we start manipulating the brain, when we start finding a way into the brain. That's one possibility, or otherwise creating supercomputers which we connect to and which will think for us. But even if we just start entering the brain, understanding neural patterns and manipulating them, we could even boost our own intelligence. Literally, we could.
But where is the creativity in allowing technology to, as you put it, think for us?
I think that when we connect to these, what we call the supercomputers, which are committed to deep learning, I think that this, by extension, will elevate our consciousness and propel it into this whole new level. So I think that the same way there's more information now on the internet about physics, about chemistry, about hitherto undiscovered branches of knowledge and math, the same way that there's such a plethora of information now on the web. The supercomputers will increase access to that knowledge and will become highly intelligent.
We all have access to this knowledge. I agree. At the touch of a button, I can Google any fact that I want. Although whoever controls Google will control the results that I find. But I do think technology, the easier life gets for us, the weaker we become. The maths teacher used to say, you need to learn the sums in your head because no one's going to walk around with a calculator everywhere you go. But now we do have a calculator everywhere we go. So we don't even bother to do any mental gymnastics, mental arithmetic. And it's like a muscle. You either use it or lose it. It's the same with reading a map. I have an absolutely terrible sense of direction now. And I could be driving to my workplace that I've been working at for 6 months, and I'm still following a sat nav because my brain no longer feels that it needs to remember these routes that we take. Are we not eroding the pathways, the neurons? I'm not a scientist, but I think relying on technology to make our lives easy has really destroyed a lot of brain cells.
You can make that case, but you know what? I think that, well, there's different levels of knowledge, right? There's different levels of math. If you look at it one way, the lower levels of math, arithmetic, multiplication, algebra, these basic levels of math are actually, they're hard. They're a bit laborious unless you're just naturally good at them or you have a really good formation. Just imagine if you can go straight into the highest math. Now, you want to know something about the highest levels of math are fluid, easy, penetrating, philosophical, and then you could just use the calculator to calculate, whatever measurement you want. But you will, if you go straight to the highest levels of math, which is that kind of quantum, whatever, fluid, kooky, cool way of thinking, which actually comes easy to us because we do have it in us to understand abstraction at the highest levels, then that's really what matters. That's much more important than simply arithmetic.
Okay. Do we understand abstraction? And I just want to add another example. I work with, I'm a teacher, I work with children, and I have asked those that are very reluctant to do the maths, would you rather have the answer to the question or have the ability to work out the answer? And they say, just give me the answer. Oh, just give me the answer. Oh, I just want the answer. I just want to get it done. That sort of short-sightedness negates the whole point of what exams were meant to be about, although they might no longer be about testing your ability, not testing whether you have one certain piece of information. But I was interested in what you said about abstraction and how we can understand it. How can we understand abstraction or abstract concepts? Is that what you're getting at?
Abstraction is fun. Abstraction is
fun.
It's fun, and it's beautiful, and it's poetic, and it's fluid. The Greeks, the ancient Greeks, they were less fixated on empirical knowledge in their educational system. And the teacher used to take the kids out into the forest, and for them, contemplation was so important. They used to contemplate the trees and the leaves and the rocks and the water. And it was this very beautiful philosophical game that they did. And I think that, to me, that's much more important than something a calculator can do for you. And yeah.
But I think in recent years, or maybe the last 100 years, we have prioritized the so-called academic subjects, things like maths, English, science, or whichever language it is that you speak. Whereas these other skills, abstract, the more creative skills, I think have been lost, and you need to rebalance. And it's interesting you spoke about the ancient Greeks. Do you know the origin of the word trivia?
No.
Something trivial. In ancient Greece, they had the trivia, which were the three arts: music, drama, and painting and drawing. Trivia, and the quadria, which were the four sciences: biology, chemistry, physics, and I think maths. Now, back then, trivia didn't have this negative connotation that it had now. It just meant the three arts, and the quadria were the four sciences. But now we have made trivia mean something unimportant because we don't seem to have the respect for the creative side of the brain. And on that note, I want to ask you about left-handed people and right-handed people. Do you think left-handed people are more creative and more in touch with this side of the brain? Because that's the stereotype about left-handed people.
Is there some kind of association between the hand you use and the lobe, which side of your brain you use? Is that?
I believe so, and they say that so left-handed people use the right side of their brain, and vice versa, and typically left-handed people are meant to be more creative. Therefore, perhaps the right hemisphere is the more creative side of the brain. In the comments, PK is saying the creative skills often use technology, examples photography, music, and filmmaking. Yeah, absolutely. I think you can use technology to be creative, but you need to be creative first of all. I don't think AI is ever going to compete with the likes of Steven Spielberg when it comes to writing does he write the script? I don't know. Whoever writes the script for the film, the narrative, the story, that has to come from human imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? Supposing that the knowledge absorption process becomes increasingly refined, then what's going to happen with human beings? Just forget about the supercomputers, forget about synthetic intelligence as something independent of humans. As we find ways to boost our own intelligence, our memory, as we refine the sort of our ontologies, our search our search processes for knowledge, we ourselves will become all geniuses. You know, the amount of information that people can access, at the same time, different fields of knowledge, interconnect them and interweave them. It's going to be a process of overall evolution. We will find ways to boost our own intelligence, not just create supercomputers.
Evolution, not revolution. And SK is baffling me with some scientific fact. There are hundreds of neurons in the brain. Fascinating, amazing, absolutely. But you don't seem as scared as I am about the coming tyranny. I've been revisiting 1984, and it's got me paranoid about the use of artificial intelligence to run our lives. And you're saying it's going to make us more intelligent. Is it going to make us all more intelligent? Is it going to make just a select few more intelligent? And if we all get more intelligent, will the people that are already very intelligent stay above those that are further down the pecking order? Is it going to be a leveler, or will it just be improving us?
I think that, like, when you get to a certain level of intelligence, like, you realize it's actually a very humbling experience. Like, I think that when you become very intelligent, you realize how little you know. So it's like, it's definitely not a hierarchical thing where you can, like, determine who's more intelligent than another. So I think it was someone asked, this is an anecdote I heard, whether it's true or not doesn't matter. It just illustrates a point. Someone asked Einstein, they said, how does it feel to be the smartest man in the world? And he said, go ask this other guy. He's way smarter than I am. So it's like, so the thing is that as myself, I consider myself an intelligent person, but I'd actually like to get to the point where I realize how little I know and how dumb I am. Like, to humble myself to realize that I don't know anything. What I know is one tiny little point. And maybe in the future, if humanity evolves properly, it evolves like as it should, then that little point in a 5-year-old kid and an 8-year-old will be 1,000 points. And so it's this endless, there's so many different types of intelligence as well, you know.
Okay. Do you believe that there's not one measurement we can take, IQ, for example, to say how intelligent someone is?
I don't think so. It's so complex.
Some people. Okay. But then can you ever say that anyone is more intelligent than anyone else?
That's dicey.
Isn't it just a nice thing to say, though? Isn't that the kind of everybody wins? Oh, we're all good at something. Well done for taking part. Some people are very thick, sorry to put it bluntly, and some people are very smart, aren't they?
I think that some people have mental blocks and veils. For instance, one thing is, like, I know people who are potentially very intelligent, and even so they're intelligent, but because they've had severe emotional traumas in their life, it's very hard for them to do kind of psychedelic gymnastics, like mental gymnastics. They're very constrained emotionally, and it's because of the fear they have from their trauma. So since they can't connect emotions to intelligence, their intelligence is kind of trivial. Not trivial, but it's limited.
Trivial.
So there's
that word.
There's potentially everyone is a genius, but it's just that some kids, kids in Africa nearly starved to death, suffer from malnutrition. Some of them may be Teslas or Einsteins. We don't know. We'll never know, or we all have to kind of like work on our own intelligence. And another thing is that some people are closed-minded, right? So they think that everything there is to know is what they know. So those people, like, I know people like that. And as long as they stay within that limited mindset, they're never going to grow mentally, They're just always going to stay with their ideas. And
do you think intelligence is on an infinite spectrum? Could you increase and increase and increase forever?
Well, was it Plato? I think the Greek philosopher who said the more, he said, all I know is that I know nothing. Like, the more you know, you realize that how little you actually know compared to what exists. So,
and we all, I think a lot of us have this tendency to put ourselves in the middle. It's like, anyone taller than me is tall, anyone shorter than me is short. And when you say intelligent compared to what, maybe, I don't know, so, a figure like Buddha, who talked about reaching enlightenment, maybe that enlightenment he reached was the realization of, as you say, the more you know, the more you realize that we don't know anything. I'm butchering it, but you get the point. So I also want to bring in spirituality. Then, do you have a spiritual outlook, a belief, and does that come into this idea of us progressing and getting better? What's more important, to become spiritually elevated or mentally elevated?
I have this theory, like this new idea that came to my mind in the past couple of weeks, is that I think that there's people who are really smart, like book smart or whatever, scientifically smart, empirically smart, but they're just kind of dumb in their decisions, maybe even destructive, or they don't have emotional intelligence. But the thing is that I think that as a person ascends the ladder of consciousness, ascends the ladder of knowledge, then what happens is that there's these kind of like quantum leaps, and so the person automatically becomes more enlightened as their intelligence becomes more pervasive and more penetrating. So that's why, like, I think that I have hope for the future, because as we human beings use supercomputers to boost our intelligence and we become, then maybe we will look back on behaviors that we had now and if we, to do something like that in the future would be considered embarrassing or ridiculous. It's like the kind of self-destructive behaviors we exhibit today, like littering and dumping plastic in the ocean. Like, people will look back on that and be like, wow, man, that's really stupid, Kind
of like owning slaves 200 years ago.
Exactly. And also, like, look how we continuously evolve, and of course there's lags, and we still have like child trafficking in the age we live in, but at the same time, look at our technologies, like things that so many things are obsolete. Like slavery is obsolete as far as I know. Like, there's no more of that. And then also, like, the actual
there is unfortunately in Libya, for example, there is.
And there's concentration camps in China, right?
Yeah, so they keep telling us. But look, I've got my doubts about that one.
Let's look. Okay, it's just like, for a moment, let's not look at the horrible things in the world, the lags in evolution, but look at, like, technologies are becoming so smart and sophisticated, and how what we're seeing in the world is a kind of, we're seeing a new mode of operation that is emanating out of the new technologies. We're seeing with AI, we're seeing how the AI people, the Silicon Valley people, are really smart people, and they have a certain kind of enlightenment about them. They're I think that when you have that high level of intelligence, it's a truly high level of intelligence, you're less likely to do stupid things. You have inbuilt into that intelligence an enlightened self-interest.
Well, on that note, PK says, here's a question: if the military complex develops AI first, they would use it to gain an advantage over other countries and therefore not share this AI super technology. I don't think that. Go on.
No, sorry, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think being more intelligent makes you more moral, and often it's the opposite. But what do you think of PK's point about the military coming up with it and using it against other countries? They're not going to share it, are they?
But suppose other people get a hold of it too. Suppose the military gets it. Suppose that like the technology innovators get it. Suppose that it's probably unlikely that it's going to be just one group of people who have it, which raises another question, right? Because people have agendas that are not noble or selfish, then that is a problem, But the thing is, just like, I think that there's going to be a lot of in the future. There's probably going to be a lot of everything, a lot of different people using using these technologies. So it could become like a tug of war. It could become, who knows, you know?
Yeah, and the good thing about the Cold War and the weapons they had was that both sides had it, and there was mutually assured destruction. Now I think we have the imbalance in the world where there's only one superpower that can boss everybody about, but China is catching up. Apparently, according to Temujin Khan, humans can only learn a maximum of 16 languages. How many languages do you speak, Seb?
3.
3. So there you go, not bad. 13 to go before you reach your limit. I wonder if that's, I mean, I don't know where you get a statistic like that. There must be a world record for being a multi-linguist. PK saying game theory predicts you are going to use AI to your in-group advantage. Yeah, in-groups and out-groups. As we get more intelligent, do you think these in-groups and out-groups will be done away with? Will we stop seeing ourselves as American or British or whatever it might be, black or white? Will we embrace a more worldly identity?
Yeah, there's that theory, like there was someone postulated in a political science class that the future will be the war of civilizations. But it would nice to be see if we could all integrate and like cooperate together. What I'm thinking is that maybe like in the future, in that sort of AI future, it'll be like a very mental, we'll live on a very mental plane so that it will be more creative. It won't be so agenda bound and all this stupid, idiotic behavior we see about politics and all this kind of stuff. Maybe that will just phase out because humanity will reach such a level of evolution, of mental evolution, that, like I said, that kind of behavior will be considered embarrassing. You know, like it'll be like, I think you know what I mean. Yeah.
I sense I do, but I'm worried that the people at the cutting edge of this technology that you're talking about are the very left brain, right hand dominant people that are into the academic subjects rather than creativity. If anyone's going to come up with it, it will be them. I think highly intelligent people are not necessarily the most moral people. I think a lot of psychopathic people are very highly intelligent, and psychopaths are very successful because of their ability to make cutthroat decisions without any guilty feeling of the moral implications. Whereas a lot of the most moral societies that we have, where people are very close to earth and not abusing the resources and causing all the destruction that you were talking about earlier, might be less intelligent, but they're very simple, moral and creative people that love to express themselves and are not obsessed with the rat race of trying to outdo the other outgroup.
Well,
not sure what you think about that.
A lot of the AI people turned away from academics because the university industry, the university system is, the universities are a bloated, lucrative industry, and they don't encourage innovation of technologies like synthetic intelligence and AI. What they do is they overburden students with debt. So a lot of the people who are creating this possibly cool future, which we could transition to, are having to do it on their own. They're not getting, there's, you know, it's their independence. They're lone wolves who are trying to do this stuff on their own. So I think that this movement is growing out of something that's more authentic and more real than simply just, like academics narrowly defined.
Okay. In the chat, HK Stocks is saying, peace all, we have gone from a corrupted, illusory, outdated democracy until March when it turned to an anarcho-tyrannical planned economy, but now turning into an AI-powered technocracy. You don't fear the technocracy, do you, Seb? You're all in favor of it.
Okay, let me, I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yeah, go on, brush over it again. I think this individual, HK Stocks, is mentioning that as of March, when the lockdown was imposed in most of the world, we've turned to an anarcho-tyrannical planned economy, but now turning into an AI-powered technocracy. This is the idea that the AI that you're in favor of is going to rule us ruthlessly.
You know, I'm heartened by some things I saw, but some things I've read about and studied. There's a step. Okay, so this is one thing I do not like centralization, and I think I agree with the person who just spoke. If I understood them correctly, I don't trust centralization. I don't trust a central agenda by one party or one group of people who have a dominant point of view. I don't trust that at all. Now, if you look at some of the new technologies, for example, like blockchain, which is connected to cryptocurrency, blockchain is basically just programming code. I'll say a blockchain is programming code, which is recording transactions. It could be financial transactions or other, and it's connected also to cryptocurrency, which is the virtualized money. And these are steps towards decentralizing, towards disconnecting from banks and governments and corporations and creating this kind of neutral place, this virtual place. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to work. It may or may not work. Only time will tell. But I really believe in a world that should and can become decentralized, so that political parties that have agendas will lose power and will cede to some kind of neutral playing ground. If this is a sign of that happening, then great. I really hope it is.
Interesting. On that note, I'd be interested to know what's your take on freedom of speech. It's a topic that comes up on this channel quite a lot. It seems, well, I'm not going to guess what you think, but what's your take on freedom of speech, freedom of expression?
What aspect of it?
Are you first of all strongly in favor or not so much? I know that's a little bit black and white. Just because when you said go on.
No, I think freedom of speech is extremely important. I think that maybe me and you, because we grew up in like the US and England, we take for granted the fact that we can speak our minds. I can hardly imagine having to live in Russia or some other like very repressive regime that doesn't allow people to speak their minds, where if you do, people come to your house and beat you up or break your windows or whatever. I think that's a travesty, and I have no love for that. I despise that way of being. I think everyone has the right to speak their mind. It's a democracy. And I think that when you look at society, it is very important for us to speak our truth and to express ourselves, what we think and what we say, without fear and without censure. In some places,
No, go on.
In some places, sometimes what you get in certain pockets of society is groupthink. You get this kind of like everyone has the same mentality and everyone's too afraid to speak the truth, the elephant in the room. Otherwise, people get so absorbed by one mentality, one way of thinking that it's impossible for them to get out of it. It's very important. Truth is fundamental. If we don't have truth in our society, we don't have people being held accountable and people investigating reality for themselves, then that's when we start sliding into some kind of nefarious state of affairs.
Investigating the truth for yourself. PK is saying that governments fear blockchain technologies. It sounds like that might be because they can't control them. And this might be another great equalizer. If everyone has access to these technologies, then no one can have a monopoly on it. But it sounds like you fear big government, or you're wary of it, understandably, and you believe in freedom of speech and individual freedom. What if big corporations replace big government and they start censoring us? They start controlling what information we are able to access. And I mentioned earlier about Google. You're getting these monopolies where one company will merge with another or will buy another. YouTube is now under Google, and I think Wikipedia is about to be bought. Facebook are possibly taking over Instagram, or I don't know the exact details, but you can see how you're getting a monopoly from just a few massive companies. They're not governments, but they might be just as tyrannical with the power, wouldn't they? Who is holding them to account other than we, the customer, the consumer? But we just lap it up because we're being told you need to be on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. You need to be on YouTube. And if they are in control of the artificial intelligence, I can't see us breaking free from that. But maybe you've got a different opinion.
You know, people are talking. There's actually a book I should recommend to you, or whoever wants to read it. It's called Life After Google. I think the author is Gilder, if I'm not mistaken. And
Okay.
it's basically the guy is predicting the demise of Google, and how, you know, I think that these giants fall eventually, and hopefully there's a succession that follows that is more enlightened or more refined process, because Google has its flaws. You know, it has poor security, pure data security. And so that's why people are talking about how blockchain is going to replace it, because blockchain is much more efficient at that game. So in the end, I think that inept or offensive or whatever, or unintelligent modes of operation, they just like disintegrate, they collapse upon themselves. They don't last, because if there's a serious flaw in the system, then the system eventually gives way to something else.
Kind of like capitalism, a product that is good quality will do well, right?
Look at capitalism now. It's fragile. Capitalism is very fragile. Look at with COVID-19. Look at how we're seeing that that the economy is suffering. Small businesses are closing, and so it's all these systems are very flawed, systems, and they're vulnerable. They can collapse. Just, you know,
and very sadly, it was the small independent businesses that suffered the most, and the huge conglomerates were very able to carry on. PK is saying it's not Russia destroying freedom of speech, it's the Twitter outrage mob and cancel culture. But SK is pointing out that Vladimir Putin's friend was in the Panama Papers. Ooh, that's no good. And Temujin Khan saying 9 out of 10 astronauts are left-handed. Goodness, that seems remarkable. PK is also mentioning that Twitter, Facebook control our speech. Try typing certain names into Facebook or Twitter and you'll get banned.
I haven't had that experience. If I'll look out for it though to see what happens, because so far I haven't had such a problem with Facebook. I don't use Twitter. I use Facebook and YouTube. Like I posted that video recently, but I haven't had any personal problems. It doesn't mean that there's no problems. It just means that that's my personal experience.
You must be saying things they like. I guess. I don't know.
I don't. It depends. What wouldn't they like? That's what I'm curious. Like, I'd be interested to hear.
Well, I can't say because it will get. This is the thing. I guess you never know where the limit is until you push the limit.
Until you cross it.
And you were saying that you're grateful to live in a country where you feel like you can say whatever you want, but maybe if you wanted to say certain things, you wouldn't be allowed to say them, and then you would feel restricted by that. I'm not sure what freedom of speech is like in Russia. I've never lived there, but certainly censorship in some countries. No?
Like I know people from Russia. I used to live in Russia myself for 3 years. So like it was different then, but from what I understand from like the Russians I know, it's dicey to go against the government, and the government is, you know, they're tough, you know.
Tough government. Yeah, I admire. I think often you can, looking at a country from outside, you can admire their foreign policy quite easily, what they're doing in the world, and you don't know what it's like to live under their regime, parliament.
I mean, it's something we take for granted here in the West, that we have a certain degree of freedom, like a certain measure of freedom to express ourselves. Like I don't know how I would live in a society where I could get threatened or worse for speaking my mind. And I'm the kind of person I feel compelled to, I'm very compelled towards self-expression. I need to call things out where I see them. And I dislike injustice. I dislike falseness. I dislike groupthink. I dislike nationalism. When the whole country becomes nationalistic, that's gross. I think I would just get sick or have to leave the country.
What about civic nationalism that doesn't create ins and out groups within the country, but doesn't a country need something to rally around, something to identify with, or otherwise, in what sense is it a country?
I think a little bit of pride is good. That's and no more, not any more than that. Just like maybe enthusiasm or passion for self-betterment, for creating a better society. But we all know in the past how sometimes those attitudes were inflated when they were associated with this kind of nefarious, this kind of malevolent underlying motivation. And we saw that with fascism, we saw that with Russia, the Stalinism, and that's some nasty stuff right there, man.
Of course, communism claims to be the opposite of nationalism and did away with any kind of national identity, but still managed to kill a lot of people in the process. I'm not sure how that happened. Maybe the problem is extremism.
Extremism, right? All it takes is one paranoid leader. And then because human beings are such sheep, and because we're controlled by fear of consequences, fear of being out of alignment with a system or the party, then people just comply, and it becomes this domino effect. And then before you know it, the nation is immersed in complete darkness, and everyone is telling on each other. Everyone is. It just becomes about the ego. The ego is a trap. The ego will make a trap out of anything. The ego will trap a trap out of not just alcohol and drugs, not just out of it'll make a trap out of ideas. That's why it's always good to create some breathing space within yourself. No matter what idea you have, it's always good to not be too sure of your ideas, to always leave some room for doubt. The people in the world who are stupid, who cause all the destruction, they're very sure of themselves. And smart people, I think, always have some doubt.
Someone once said a good idea is a good idea forever, but maybe not. And that's interesting. I had a friend who, whether he was right or wrong, he was absolutely certain, and he was wrong about 50% of the time. Whereas people that tend to be right do doubt themselves, and also truth tellers will question. Oh, did I remember that correctly? I mean, on my travels, I've had to be in situations where I've been interrogated at certain times and taken away for a little bit of a pat down and asked why I'm visiting certain countries. And the people I've been traveling with have tried to rehearse some kind of a script, like we're all going to say this and we'll do that. And I said, you need to have a bit more of a loose script, because someone reading a script sounds like a liar. A truth teller will be unsure of themselves, and the wise man will question whether he's correct, whereas the fool will be absolutely certain that the earth's flat, or whatever it is they're sure of. There aren't many agnostic flat earthers, are there? In the comments, we've got, if you don't have pride in the country you're in, then you don't deserve to be there. Seb, I hope you've got pride in Washington, D.C.
What do you define as pride?
Well, they'll have to tell us. That's a comment from Pay No Attention to That Man Behind the Curtain. PK is saying communism is about class war, fascism is racial war. Yeah, maybe it's just another group to rally around and have a fight for, isn't it? Maybe there's something in us that wants to have a fight, though. Maybe it's the caveman in us and the tribes that we came from. Yeah, I can see you're raring to go.
every. Is someone going to speak, or should I speak?
No, go on, go on.
I think that I wish we could all collectively take a really good, sweet, chill pill and learn to relax and learn to enjoy life more. Since I started enjoying life more, I started hanging out with people from other cultures when I'm abroad in South America, where I live in Santiago, Chile, when I'm not here. And a certain lightness came over me, and I realized that I just don't fight as hard as I used to. It hurts too much. That kind of fighting mentality, the need to condemn, the need to accuse, is just like, I'm so glad that I hung out with these cool African people and Jamaicans and other people from other cultures, and being around them really took a load off my heart. And now I'm just generally a happier, lighthearted person. I don't need to go to war, you know?
Superb. It wasn't ayahuasca, was it? The pill that you took?
It's just, no. No, I mean, figuratively speaking, like a chill pill. Like sometimes when you hang out with people from other cultures and you sort of, you absorb their energy, and some of these other cultures like Africans, Latins, people from all around the world are just more lighthearted, and they don't take life as seriously. And so it's like beneficial for your heart, for your energy to be exposed to that energy, to absorb it, and to realize that, hey man, there's nothing's worth fighting for, you know, in a good sense.
Yes. And these countries where there's a more chilled attitude, I'm stereotyping now, but they don't tend to be at the cutting edge of technology, though. These are not the industrial powerhouses, are they?
Yeah.
So is it that these societies emphasize the right side of the brain, the left-handed, creative, artistic side of humanity? Maybe.
I think that it's just like they've grown up with, you know, imagine growing up in Africa. I'm not saying life in Africa is easy. I'm sure there's a lot of suffering and that people have hard times there, like everywhere. But where your pleasures are simpler, they have less education, and this in itself can be a bonus, because like a plus, because you're less in your head, you're more out there with people. People have the values are, you know, like in South America where I lived in Bolivia, the values are romance, family, good times, sex, brotherhood. And so those things, I feel like people who don't have those things, like they just go, maybe like the tendency to more go straight up into your head, or just become very snarky and salty about little things that go wrong, instead of just like realizing that you have all these blessings in your life.
Brilliant. I'm just last question for you, Seb, is did any of that experience come out in your poetry and your spoken word?
Oh yeah. Well, like when I was living in Chile, you know, I'm not the kind of person that falls in love very easily, or very until more recently. I was living in Chile, and part of this lightning process that happened to me, this growing, this kind of expanding of my heart and my energy, I met this really amazing Venezuelan girl, and she's like the strongest crush of my life, you know, and it's like she really was the icing on the cake that took me to this plane of bliss that was so amazing. And it was an amazing experience. And I think it's something that in previous years, maybe I was too close to have that kind of experience. And the whole point of life is not to stay contracted and small, but the point is to grow and grow and get bigger and bigger and have more love and compassion. And so as I grew, I think I could receive this girl into my heart, and she became one of the loves of my life, if not the love of my life.
Oh wow, that's superb, Seb. What a wonderful way to conclude a very positive and enlightening chat. We've been all the way around. PK has got the final word. He said it's the industrial countries that will give you the AI, not the lost Amazon tribe. But maybe we need both. We need the intelligence, we need the creativity, and you kind of completed that circle in South America.
Yeah. All the consciousness we need, all the specks of light, all the streams of light, the wisdom, the knowledge, the sweetness, the ecstasy, the beautiful intensity, it's all there in the planet. It's all there within us, all around us. What we need to do is tap into it. with technology or whatever means, we can't tap into all of that and multiply it. So we create a heavenly place, not a hellish place, you know?
Superb. And PK is saying you're a great guest. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Seb, we'll definitely do it again. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Well done,
Okay.
mate. Nice one.
See you. Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
for watching, people. See you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.